Hi, everyone. I am today going to be reading here for you this short story that is in your textbook called The Rules of the Game. It's on page 63, and just some important context to have as you're reading the story. The author, her name is Amy Tan. She's a fairly famous Chinese American author who a lot of her writing deals with sort of generational differences between children and then like first generation American children and then their immigrant parents. So that's going to be part of what we read about here in this story. Also, good to know that this story is actually part of a larger novel that she wrote called The Joy Luck Club. So if you like this, you could read that book. But for now, just the story. Here we go. Got a copy here that I can write on. All right, so you can guess from the picture, it's going to have to do with chess, right? And you've got a little bit of background here about chess and this idea of the Grand Master, right? So this is going to turn up in the story that the most successful players are called Grand Masters. So good to know. Adjust this down a little bit, get a little bit more zoomed in. Okay. I was 6 when my mother taught me the art of invisible strength. It was a strategy for winning arguments, respect from others, and eventually, though neither of us knew it at the time, chess games. Okay, she's talking about her mother and this idea of invisible strength. I'm going to underline those, might be important. Bite back your tongue, scolded my mother when I cried loudly, yanking her hand towards the store that sold bags of salted plums. At home, she said, wise guy, he no go against wind. In Chinese, we say, come from south, blow with wind, pum. North will follow. Strongest wind cannot be seen. Okay, important lesson from her mother. The next day I bit back my tongue as we entered the store with the forbidden candies. When my mother finished her shopping, she quietly plucked a small bag of plums from the rack and put it on the counter with the rest of the items. So here the author's learning this lesson, right, that if she's quiet and if she's calm, she will get what she wants, right? Bite her tongue, don't cry, don't complain, and because she did, she got the candies. So don't make a big fuss. And you are more likely to get what you want. Okay. My mother imparted her daily truths so she could help my older brothers and me rise above our circumstances. We lived in San Francisco's Chinatown. Like most of the other Chinese children who played in the back alleys of restaurants and curio shops, I didn't think we were poor. My bowl was always full, 3 5-course meals every day, beginning with a soup full of mysterious things I didn't want to know the names of. We lived on Waverly Place, in a warm, clean, 2-bedroom flat that sat above a small Chinese bakery specializing in steamed pastries and dim sum. In the early morning when the alley was still quiet, I could smell fragrant red beans as they were cooked down to a pasty sweetness. By daybreak, our flat was heavy with the odor of fried sesame balls and sweet curried chicken crescents. From my bed, I would listen to my father get ready for work, then locked the door behind him. 1, 2, 3 clicks. So we're getting setting here, right? As you're thinking about parts of the story, right? She's creating a mood or a feeling of what it's like in her childhood home. Good to start being aware of how and when authors do that. Got some description of her home. Okay. At the end of our 2-block alley was a small sandlot playground with swings and slides well shined down the middle with youth. The play area was bordered by wood slat benches where old country people sat cracking roasted watermelon seeds with their golden teeth and scattering the husks to an impatient gathering of gurgling pigeons. The best playground, however, was the dark alley itself. It was crammed with daily mysteries and adventures. My brothers and I would peer into the medicinal herb shop, watching the old Lee dole out onto a stiff sheet of white paper the right amount of insect shells, saffron-colored seeds, and pungent leaves for his ailing customers. It was said that he once cured a woman dying of an ancestral curse that had eluded the best of American doctors. So here, right, knowing what I know about Tan and that she's writing about sort of cultural distinctions, I'm going to make a note of this, right? We've got this distinction between Chinese and American culture. Right? He was able to cure something that American doctors couldn't. Next to the pharmacy was a printer who specialized in gold embossed wedding invitations and festive red banners. Farther down the street was pt.1 Fish Market. The first window displayed a tank crowded with doomed fish and turtles struggling to gain footing on the slimy green tiled sides. A handwritten sign informed tourists, "Within this store is all for food, not for pet." Inside, the butchers with their blood-stained white smocks deftly gutted the fish, while customers cried out their orders and shouted, "Give me your freshest," to which the butcher always protested, "All are freshest." On less crowded market days, we would inspect the crates of live frogs and crabs, which we were warned not to poke, boxes of dried cuttlefish, and row upon row of iced prawns, squid, and slippery fish. The sandabs made me shiver each time. Their eyes lay on one flattened side and reminded me of my mother's story of a careless girl who ran into a crowded street and was crushed by a cab. "Was smashed flat," reported my mother. Again, all of this just continuing, really this whole page, she's creating a setting and a mood, right? She's describing her childhood neighborhood and really these very unique sort of cultural components of her childhood home. At the corner of the alley was Hong Sing's, a four-table cafe with a recessed stairwell in front that led to a door marked "Tradesmen." My brothers and I believed the bad people emerged from this door at night. Tourists never went to Hong Sing's, since the menu was printed only in Chinese. A Caucasian man with a big camera once posed me and my playmates in front of the restaurant. He had us move to the side of the picture window so that the photo would capture the roasted duck with its head dangling from a juice-covered rope. So again, we're seeing this sort of culture clash, right? What maybe seems normal to her as part of her childhood, a photographer has come to photograph because it is so different from the rest of America. After he took the picture, I told him he should go into Hong Sing's and eat dinner. When he smiled and asked me what they served, I shouted, "Guts and duck feet and octopus gizzards." And then I ran off with my friends, shrieking with laughter as we scampered across the alley and hid in the entryway grotto of the China Gem Company, my heart pounding with hope that he would chase us. My mother named me after the street that we lived on, Waverly Place, Jong, my official name for important American documents, but my family called me May May, little sister. I was the youngest, the only daughter. Okay. So again, right, two names. She's got a family name and then she's got an official name for American documents. So we're seeing that duality. So official name, American documents, and then a family name. And I'm also going to note this concept in the margins because this really seems to be emerging as I am reading, right? That there's a duality. There's this sort of her existence, and then there's America, and those are perhaps separate in some ways for her. Each morning before school, my mother would twist and yank on my thick black hair until she had formed two tightly wound pigtails. One day, as she struggled to weave a hard-toothed comb through my disobedient hair, I had a sly thought. I asked her, "Ma, what is Chinese torture?" My mother shook her head. A bobby pin was wedged between her lips. She wetted her palm and smoothed the hair above my ear, then pushed the pin in so that it nicked sharply against my scalp. "Who say this word?" she asked, with a trace of knowing how wicked I was being. I shrugged my shoulders and said, "Some boy in my class said Chinese people do Chinese torture." "Chinese people do many things," she said simply. "Chinese people do business, do medicine, do painting. Not lazy like American people. We do torture. Best torture."